Welcome back to Dr. Supercoach. On this video, I'll be discussing the watch list for the upcoming practice matches coming up. Hey, what's up everyone? It's JB from Dr. Supercoach, and if this is your first appointment here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming updates. Now, today's episode is focused on picking some players for my watch list for the upcoming practice matches starting today, so I'm getting in late here. I'm just going to get straight into it. We're going to discuss some players that I'm looking at, some left field players hopefully. They're not all going to be premiums. In fact, none of them are going to be premium selections, I don't think. We're going to start off with obvious premium selections. We're going to start off here with Hayden Young, 10% ownership, $508,200. Now, Hayden Young without Luke Ryan in the first practice match against the Crows did not look good at all, but we're hearing amazing things from him this preseason. I think there's still a chance he comes into this match with the kick-ins, with the clean use of the football, and proves a lot of people wrong who have already ruled him off their list. Look, there's a good chance we don't start with Hayden Young this year, but we can get a good bit of information from him in the upcoming practice match. The next guy I want to discuss is Will Day in 5% of Supercoach teams after watching him have a CBA role in the first practice match. Now, he didn't light the world on fire, but with a good preseason in the CBA role and now another practice match under his belt, Will Day definitely could come and surprise us all with a good game, which would, I think, rocket his ownership up. 362k is a little bit awkward, and Elliot Yeo is the obvious pick in that price range. But if you open up a second spot there, Will Day could potentially be that guy to sort of pseudo premium your way into an early upgrade. Now we're going to drop a fair way down now. Liam Jones is the next one I'm going to pop in here. 8% ownership for good reason. He hasn't really played football in years now. Obviously, we know why. $228,100. Now, he could come in and provide a steady hand with a 65 to 70 average at best, I think. If he has that intercepting defensive role, which we assume he does, I think there's a good chance he makes his $150,000 at a slow burn, at a slow rate. So if you do run out of options, then he's someone that we definitely need to be keeping an eye on. Now, someone who's a little bit left field here, Hayden Crozier, 2% ownership, was practicing with the A's in defense in their practice match, which was a match simulation. If he lines up in the A squad this week, I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on. He's only ever really averaged 70 plus throughout his career. That guarantees him the money made. Obviously, he's made a bit of paper mache, so that is one to watch. But if he performs well in this practice match, I expect that 2% to maybe have a 0 behind it, especially if we get another showing from Nick Caulfield like we did on the first practice match. So only came in late during the game. Looked like he was part of the second squad, but I don't think he's part of that second squad. I think he's going to be in the A's. I think he's going to play AFL football from the jump, hopefully. It's just whether he's put his injury woes behind him and whether Ross the Boss can trust him in that team. So I was wearing a fluoro cap as late as last week or a week and a half ago at training in that intra-club matches. So definitely one to keep an eye on. If he does get into that A squad, he was taking some kickouts in the intra-club for the A's not too long ago. So definitely at that price range, very generous. Now, someone who a lot of people are starting to call on, still 20% ownership, Josh Gota. Mostly because I don't know what role exactly he's going to play. He could play halfback. He could be up on a wing, which I don't enjoy. He could be half forward, which I think almost eliminates him as a pick. He's definitely one to watch and one to watch closely. There's every chance he's not even in the best 22, but I think he does a lot right, and he represents that very good mixture between can be a cool head under pressure and is the youth that North Melbourne won and Alistair Clarkson won. So I think that's definitely an interesting one. Now, someone who definitely didn't cover himself in any glory in the first practice match was Connor McKenna. 39% ownership, only got a few touches in that first pracky. It is obviously his return to AFL football, so we can probably just bypass that one game. But I think we do need to see signs at an elevated price of 167k. I think Connor McKenna has to come out and at least show that he has life left in him to make some quick cash for us. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know how to pronounce this lad's name. I'm just going to call him AC for now. Alex, 102,400, and this also applies to whoever wins the role out of the two Carlton players. So the other one is 117k. I think there's a good chance one of them gets into the squad. Lockie Cowan is his name, 12% ownership. I think there's a good chance one of them gets into the squad. Not sure which one. I think a lot of people are hoping it's the cheaper option. He was part of their VFL side last year, so he already has some experience on the list. So I think there's a good chance he wins the role, AC, my boy AC. And LC plays from the sideline a little bit to begin, but that's fine. Whichever one we get in, they're both cheaper than the 123k options. Now, I didn't mention obvious options like Campbell Chesser and Darcy Wilmot. I think those guys are more obvious. They should get into the squad and their roles should be good enough. So 47% ownership there as well. We're going to move on to the midfield now. I'm going to start with someone that you would classify as a premium, but I did notice he's only got 8% ownership. I think with another best on ground performance this week, as he was last week, Davies Uniacke's percentage is going to fly. $557,400. He's priced at an average of 101, but he did not do 101 after moving into the midfield last season. I don't think I have the stats on this account. We can look. I don't know if that's coming out correctly. Essentially, he had a really good finish to the year after he got the M1 status in his team. So that might be it. Anyway, I think LDU with another best on ground performance is going to turn a lot of heads, and being at the cheap price of 557k, I think a lot more people are going to fancy that punt after the weekend's games. Dom Sheed is the next guy, 9% ownership, 332k, same price as Jacob Hopper, and someone who can definitely burst out the gates and provide with some good scoring and good money making. So he did lead the club in CBAs in the game against Port Adelaide. He didn't play particularly out of his skin, but he definitely did enough to have another look at in this second week. So with a good performance from Dom Sheed, I can see that 9% definitely going up as well. With a bad performance, I can see it plummeting to nearly zero. Now, someone who has almost lost all his stocks, James Worpel, 6% ownership, has been backed in again by the club this week. A tweet came out just today that Worpel is going to have every opportunity to be at his best this year and just play good football. The jury's still out on Worpel. It might just be that this is where he's at. Maybe he's a 75 average midfielder forever. Maybe he gets moved out of there because he doesn't perform as well as what they want him to. But there is every chance, as we've seen in the past, that Worpel is a gun midfielder and he could still do that this season. So I'm not scratching him off my watch list just yet at 309k. Now the next guy, this is one that is high on my watch list. 5% ownership is criminal. Finn Callaghan, 244k. This ownership is only representative of the fact that he hasn't played in front of a public viewership as of yet. They've only done the intra-club, which they did this week, instead of scheduling a match against Bulldogs, which I'm actually not sure why neither club decided. Maybe it's because they're bitter rivals, but I thought that was very interesting. But just 5% ownership, I do expect this to go up. Callaghan is a good stopgap to have it in your side, a good price point to just sit on at the moment. Worst case scenario, we go down, and someone that I think a lot of teams are going to go down to, 11% ownership on Cam McKenzie. Did miss last week with a niggle. Now he is back in this week. I do believe he's best 22. I'm not exactly sure how he plays, which is why he's very high on my watch list. If he looks like a good CBA midfielder for Hawthorn, I think he's got a lot of money to make this year, and someone who people are forgetting about, I think, due to the lack of exposure. 180k, we might have to try and squeeze him into our team. Now I've got two more guys here. Firstly, Oliver Hollands, 162k, has been occupying a wing for Carlton thus far in the preseason. Now they do have a few returning injuries early in the year, so he's one that might not quite make it. But if he looks like the type of player that's going to hold his spot even in the best 22 with his performance this week, then I think he's definitely not one to discount, especially if a few of the other lads start falling over themselves. Now, just lastly, This lad is only in here because he's only on 16% ownership, and I think that's criminal. We're all going to have a look at Oscar Baker this week, and I think we're all going to put him into our side. He has a wing role locked in for the Western Bulldogs, as I believe, as we've seen all preseason thus far, and as he played in their intra-club on the weekend. So 123k, he should be in absolutely every midfield bench. I see a lot of players like Josh Sin, I think, has high ownership. Matthew Johnson is another one. They're not going to play. Connor Blakely, 11%, not going to play, in my opinion. So I think a lot of those players will be transitioned to Oscar Baker. Now, I've cheated a little bit on my ruck line. I think this guy's an obvious watch. Darcy Cameron, 465k ruck forward. Whatever the split is with Cox, it has to be profitable in Darcy Cameron's favour, and he has to play well and get through injury-free if we are to consider him at all. 465k, I think, is proving too much of a middleman for people considering Darcy Cameron as a pick. I think people are either opting to go the premium option or the Scott Lysett option, and that is the next guy we're going to keep an eye on. So Port's ruck situation is very interesting. In my opinion, it is going to be Lysett and Teakle to start the season until Finlayson is fit, and then we see Teakle go out for Finlayson. In the meantime, Scott Lysett, 429k, 4% ownership, contract year. I think the belief is high in the club that Lysett is going to lead us in the early rounds of the season at least. Now, this guy his stock has flown in recent days. He's 25% ownership. He might even be too high to discuss in this video. But Asava, with the injury of Jack Henry, is going to lock in a defensive role. The only reason he's on this list right now is because if he does get a forward role, now that Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins, and Jack Henry are out, there is a chance that he's still a pass. But I think it's very, very highly likely that they want him in the defence and that he's going to play an intercepting role. I don't think he's an on-field option, but he's very good to stash on the bench and have cover for a potential Lysett or Cameron or whoever you're going there, Darcy or English. I think there's a lot of injury-prone players in that line. So we're going to go over into the forward line. We're going to start with old man Ben Cunnington, 9% ownership. Now, he did get a lucrative role in their Pracky match, their intra-club match a few weeks ago. 419k. If he plays some sort of an 80-20 split between mid and forward, he'll be looking at similar numbers to when he averaged triple figures. At that price, I think it's very tempting. We've seen quotes that Jai Simpkin is going to move to that wing/half forward role. So I think he's the one that's made way for Cunnington to really burst into the scene and go back to the basics. I don't think he's going to be a premium keeper, but I think he can make a really quick amount of money to get you up to a potential Clayton Oliver or Laird or whichever one you don't start that you think might drop early days. The next guy is his teammate in defence. He's not teammates in defence, but his teammate who is playing in defence, Jack Zeeble, $356,400. Now, 6% ownership. 6% of people will remember what he was like 2 years ago as a defender, as a forward-turned defender. Absolute uber premium status. I don't know where Aaron Hall is going to be this year, but I'm not sure he's going to be the one that sort of derails Jack Zeeble's uber premium status. But at the very least, Jack Zeeble has a chance to make that money tenfold. And if he gets a lot of kickouts, he's easily high on what should be everyone's watch list for these run of games. Now, the next guy, I don't really understand this pick. 16% ownership, Jason Horne-Francis. He did lead Port Adelaide in the CBAs in the first practice match. I don't think that's going to continue into the future. I actually don't know how many he gets at all, but now with Boak injured, a spot does open up for him early in the year. You do need him to make that money quickly though, so we need to see that he's using the ball well in the midfield and that he's at least acclimatizing, he's tackling, he's putting pressure on, he's going to get those things that keeps the points ticking over. I think we need to see a lot from Horne-Francis this week to lock him into our sides or consider having him in our sides. The next guy I've got in here is Oscar Allen. I think if we saw any ruck time from Oscar Allen, he'd be a really easy selection. The rumours are that he's just going to strictly play full forward for them, or second fiddle when Darling's in, probably still full forward when Darling's in. And that sort of puts him in a similar vein to Ben King, who's returning. but he's more expensive. So I'm very interested to see his role, interested to see how he's progressed. Apparently he looks incredible this preseason as well. So if he just looks like a new man, 210k as a goal kicker, he could easily make that money back. So he's definitely one to watch for me. Now, a lot of people have scratched this guy off their watch list. Luke Pedler didn't get any CBAs for Adelaide in the first round of the preseason matches. However, did play very well in the forward line, was very classy. Had 2 games last year where he was the green vest, and 1 game where he played for a 45, unused green vest as well. So if he breaks into that best 22, 173k, he does have some experience, more so than a lot of players that we are considering in that forward line. But whether he has the scoring potential or the role, I guess, is to be decided. We're going to see this week. Now, I have got the next guy, Josh Bruce. Now, Bruce is interesting. Bruce is very interesting because I'm not sure if he plays. I'm not sure if he's best 22. I'm not sure where or how he plays. I'm sure it's likely defense that they're trying to push him into. I doubt he comes and plays forward, but he's got 8% ownership for someone who didn't participate in the A's as a defender in the intra-club match that they had. So Josh Bruce might be the highest on our watch list now that Ryan Gardner has sustained an elbow injury. I think it's going to be very interesting as to how they plug that gap. It might be with Bruce, but it might be for a very short period of time to start the season. So I do think he's favoured over the likes of Alex Keith, which is crazy to say after they recruited him from the Crows a few years ago. However, 161,000, if he is playing an intercepting role, it becomes very, very interesting as to how Bruce goes. Now, let me make up for missing Horn Francis here. And then lastly, we've got Lachlan McAndrew. So he's on here mostly as an outlet for people who can't afford Radaglia. There's every chance you are forced into someone like Radaglia if you do want that swing. But McAndrew is the guy to bail you out if you do get a bailout at all. So rumours are that he's going to play early on in the season. However, Hickey will not be far away, and Laddams will not be far away either. So whether he plays deep into the season or just a couple of weeks, I'm unsure. He's one to watch because if he dominates this week, there's every chance that he wins his spot for the foreseeable future. So definitely one to watch, not one that I'm going to rule out. So this is the 30, not 30, this is the 25 odd guys that I've got here. It's a strong watch list. I obviously haven't included Uber premiums or obvious guys like Sheasel. I'm sure we'll see enough from Sheasel or quite to the contrary, but everyone's going to have eyes on him. I tried to aim for the slightly left field guys. If I had to pick anyone, Finn Callahan was the guy when doing my research today that has the lowest ownership that I could have even guessed that Finn Callahan would have. So I would have expected him to be over 10%. He's getting a lot of good raps all over social media, so I do expect this number to go higher. I expect him to play well, and I expect him to be about 4th or 5th in their CBA rotation, which is mental to think. Now for the question of the day, who did I miss in that squad, and who are you watching very, very closely from the guys that I've listed below? I still think there's a lot of room for players that I've missed out on here. There's going to be a long list of rookies that we watch very, very, very closely, and obviously we're going to have our eyes on any potential role changes, even the guys, the Uber premiums like Bontempelli, that is potentially going forward. Maybe we want to just lock him into our sides with a full mid-time role. Let me know down below who you're keeping an eye on. Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy some of our other content linked around here on the video somewhere. You can support what we do by going over to our Patreon and merch store, which is down below in the description, and we'll see you at the next Dr. Supercoach appointment.